This is one of the feature panels of the day to have the DFINITY Foundation with us. Of course, the people behind the internet computer. The internet computer went viral this year. It went absolutely nuts. Everyone was talking about it. ICP going to the moon and beyond. And with me is Dominic Williams, who is the founder and chief scientist of DFINITY. And he is hosted here today by Adriana Hamacher. Adriana Hamacher is currently the founder, and she is the founder of Hipgeeks. So it's great to have you guys with us. I'm going to hand straight over to you, Adriana. This is a fantastic panel. Everyone waiting to hear from Dominic. Adriana, over to you.
Hi. So I've written a lot about DFINITY and Dominic. Welcome, Dominic. Over the years, mainly for Decrypt, of which I was a member of the founding team. And I want to start just with a little bit of background, because this kind of journey to integrate with Bitcoin started sort of earlier this year, didn't it, with a vote. And the DFINITY community voted overwhelmingly to integrate with Bitcoin, which is super exciting because it's going to have all these use cases. So I'm hoping you can start with just telling me some of them and why this is so important.
Well, you know, the internet computer is a big project, and it involved a lot of the development of a lot of new cryptography. And key to that is something called chain key cryptography, which allows a blockchain to have a kind of public key that it can create signatures for, without any individual node in the blockchain network having a private key. And this is instrumental to how the internet computer works. The same technology can be used to allow the internet computer to create Bitcoin transactions. So at some point we realized that we could directly integrate the two networks such that smart contracts on the internet computer could be given their own Bitcoin addresses and could send, receive, and hold Bitcoin. Now, just at a high level, this is obviously very exciting because in a way, it grafts smart contract technology onto the Bitcoin network. So it'll be possible to create smart contracts that can hold Bitcoin and can actually, you know, send Bitcoin to other contracts or users. And that Bitcoin will be real Bitcoin that actually moves on the Bitcoin network, which is something very different to wrapped Bitcoin or Bitcoin that's been moved around via some kind of sidechain mechanism.
Right.
And
sorry, I was going to come to that because it's not the first time. Obviously, people have tried to kind of integrate the wider sort of blockchain ecosystem or bridge other blockchains with Bitcoin. But this is kind of different, isn't it? Can you explain partly why?
Yeah, so it's essentially native support for smart contracts on Bitcoin, which is very different. So, you know, if you write an Ethereum smart contract, for example, you know, you can directly send Ether to other smart contracts and it moves on the Ethereum blockchain. Now, you know, there is the presence of wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum, but that's something very different to real Bitcoin. It involves somebody sending Bitcoin to a bridge, which is a kind of trusted intermediary that acts as an issuer and redeemer of wrapped Bitcoin. And of course, when those wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum are processed and moved around by smart contracts, they don't move on the Bitcoin blockchain itself. The difference here is that these smart contracts actually have native Bitcoin addresses. And when they send Bitcoin, it will actually move on the Bitcoin blockchain, which means that you can create DeFi, and you know, the internet computer is the world's first truly scalable blockchain, and it has a lot of interesting new capabilities. Smart contracts can directly serve interactive web content to users without need for the corporate cloud, and they run very, very efficiently. So you can do things like create, a chat service using smart contracts, and some developers have already done this. It's called Open Chat. And this really is the emergence of something we call social-fi, which blends social media functionality with DeFi functionality. And you're going to see similar things with games and GameFi. And that means, for example, that, people will, send cryptocurrency or chat messages and things like that. So, in the future, somebody could build something like, Open Chat, where users could actually load their chat accounts with Bitcoin that actually, sent to an address on the Bitcoin blockchain, and then, send Bitcoin to each other in chat messages, and that Bitcoin would actually move on the Bitcoin blockchain. So, it's pretty powerful, and in many ways a kind of profound advance. And the cryptography behind it, the chain key cryptography behind it, is really very interesting indeed.
Wow. Well, it's different though, isn't it? Because I remember seeing a video with you talking about how this is so very different from bridges, and because this is the current way of putting Bitcoin on another blockchain platform, and you actually called bridges so unsafe that it's akin to Mt. Gox, which is the exchange. This is got hacked. I mean, do you really believe that the current systems are so unsafe?
Look, the whole point of blockchain is to remove intermediaries, because intermediaries are unsafe. And I mean, look, the Poly network got hacked for 600 million Bitcoin and Ether and other things just a few months ago. And that's the problem with using a trusted intermediary. If you want to move Bitcoin onto Ethereum today, for example, you have to send that to some bridge provider, which is a trusted intermediary, and they act as an issuer and redeemer of the wrapped Bitcoin. The other problem, of course, is that wrapped Bitcoin from different bridge providers aren't really fungible, because I could be a bridge provider and you could be a bridge provider. I'm creating wrapped Bitcoin 1 and you're creating wrapped Bitcoin 2. But how do you exchange them? I might have a better trust profile than you, right? So they're definitely not fungible. My wrapped Bitcoin should be worth a bit more because I'm less likely to get hacked. So it really isn't the way to go at all long term, albeit it's provided a good temporary solution for moving tokens between chains. But look, I think what's particularly interesting about this is Bitcoin's got more than $1 trillion of liquidity today, and it doesn't really have native smart contract support. So we're hoping that once this functionality becomes available soon, we'll see a new Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem emerging. And this can work in different ways. People can create smart contracts that on the internet computer that directly move Bitcoin around. Obviously, if you do that, the movement of Bitcoin will take you sort of 40 minutes. But if you want, you can create a completely trustless exchange smart contract on the internet computer, which again has its own Bitcoin address that you deposit to, but isn't controlled by a trusted intermediary. It's just a completely autonomous contract, and you can use that to move Bitcoin around on the internet computer with only 2-second finality. So that will provide an alternative to things like the Lightning Network.
This is obviously seen as a kind of massive boost for, I think, the blockchain ecosystem as a whole. But I mean, what is it going to do for the Bitcoin community? How do you see the Bitcoin community reacting to this? I mean, you just mentioned they have Lightning Network already. I mean, there are side chains. Jack Dorsey, who is the great hero of Bitcoin, is building something called TBD, which we don't know anything about. So, what makes ICP able to compete with all of this? What's the secret sauce?
Well, I mean, the Internet computer was developed by the DFINITY Foundation, which continues as its biggest contributor. We have the world's biggest team of leading cryptographers. Many big famous names like Jan Kamenisch and Victor Shoup and Jens Groth, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And that over a period of many years has enabled us to develop new ways of doing things, because we've actually been able to create novel cryptography frameworks. I mean, I think it's no secret that the Internet computer is sort of pursued by far the biggest R&D operation in crypto. And the DFINITY Foundation, employs more leading cryptographers than any other organization in the world. So, if you want to do things like this, it's certainly not trivial. You need the right people, and it also takes a long time, and you have to build a R&D infrastructure capable of pulling off the kind of complex engineering involved. So, that's the task we dedicated ourselves to some years ago when we sort of fell in love with the world computer dream. We wanted to make sure there was a world computer blockchain that people could use, and that blockchain would eventually become the entire stack. On the Internet computer, you don't need corporate cloud. Smart contracts run at web speed. They can actually serve HTTP requests. You can authenticate yourself to dApps and services in a very convenient way, just using your devices like the fingerprint sensor on your laptop, or the Face ID on your phone, or a portable authenticator like a YubiKey or a Ledger Wallet. And we're just kind of furrowing that path, and we're going to continue down it, just continuing to provide incremental improvements to the Internet computer blockchain. And certainly for us, I mean, look, I got into blockchain because of Bitcoin, as did many other people, and it changed my life. And that's what got me so fascinated with this technology and the underlying cryptography and so on in the first place. So, I think it's for us very fitting that we integrate the two networks. And I do believe that there's a lot of potential for native Bitcoin DeFi, but we'll just have to wait and see what people do with it. It might just be that people build sort of cool socialify and gamefi dApps on the Internet computer, and I mean one of the things I hope to see is a lot of play to earn games, sort of GameFi, and it could be that those kind of things involve Bitcoin, but I think there's a lot of scope as well for and a lot of potential for pure Bitcoin DeFi. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Do you see any kind of problems with the upgrade? Because upgrades or forks are always a bit perilous. I mean, you had a massive community vote, so a lot of people are in favour, obviously, nearly everybody. But I mean, what's the kind of timeline with this? Is it still the end of the year that we're aiming at? And what are the kind of, are there any rocky parts that still need to be surmounted?
Well, first of all, with respect to upgrading the Internet computer, actually it runs under the control of something called the network nervous system, which is a permissionless algorithmic governance system that's integrated into its protocols. And the network runs on sovereign hardware, so it's a sovereign network comprised of node machines run by independent owner-operators from independent data centers in different geographies and jurisdictions around the world. And the network nervous system is able to upgrade the protocol by pushing updates to the node machines that host the network. So, you know, rather than individual node owner operators manually installing updates, the governance system pushes updates. So, you know, I think that system's already processed thousands of proposals. You know, you mentioned earlier the one regarding Bitcoin that was sort of passed by overwhelming majority by the community. So first of all, you know, the internet computer is what we call an adaptive blockchain. It's available. It's able to evolve very quickly in practice and very securely and without sort of breaking. That's sort of part of the design. And obviously that's very important here because, you know, the framework that makes this possible is extremely complicated, you know, both with respect to the cryptography involved and with respect to the, you know, blockchain protocol that, you know, runs the chain key system and ensures that, you know, the internet computer can create all these public keys without any, and then sign against those public keys without any individual node actually having a corresponding private key, because that wouldn't work, obviously, because the node operator could steal the key and in this particular application steal the Bitcoin.
Well,
Oh, and you asked.
Sorry,
no.
go on.
No, yeah. So you asked about the timeline. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a big team working on this. It's progressing very well, but there's absolutely no room for error with the implementation of cryptography. So it's not just a question of how quickly we can get it running, for example, on, you know, internal test nets and things like that. It's a question of how quickly we can get comfortable that there aren't any flaws in the implementation. But I certainly think we're getting nearer. I don't, you know, being frank, I don't think we'd want to release something like this just before the Christmas holidays in case something went wrong. So you could expect it early 2022.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, otherwise everyone would have a very fraught Christmas, and
yeah,
it's going to happen around Christmas in the blockchain space. So you don't want to tempt fate. So we're just wrapping up. Got a couple of minutes to go. I wish you an awful lot of luck with all of this. Can't wait to see it. But I just wondered if we could get your thoughts quickly about the blockchain space generally and all this regulation that's happening at the moment. You know, the SEC is really clamping down on kind of DeFi protocols, stable coins. I mean, how does this leave DFINITY, and how do you think, what kind of an ecosystem are we going to see in a year to come?
Well, I don't know about other blockchains, but I can kind of tell you what we're aiming to support. You know, our belief is that you have to totally decentralize dApps and blockchain services, because otherwise you don't get censorship resistance. And the problem today is, firstly, that on other blockchains, every single dApp has to incorporate into its architecture a website running on corporate cloud, typically Amazon Web Services. So there are a lot of problems with that. I mean, look, last year Amazon Web Services switched off Parler. Now, you may or may not agree with the right-wing politics of Parler, but this was actually a very scary move, and it shows how you know, how much power has accrued to these, you know, corporate giants. Now, you know, with the right political, regulatory, and commercial incentives, I have no doubt that Amazon Web Services and the others wouldn't hesitate to switch off all these dApps. It also, you know, a security vulnerability, because when users are interacting with these dApps, they can never really be sure they're even interacting with smart contracts on the back end unless they get a block explorer out, which no one wants to do. And so, you know, they're vulnerable. This problem is even now extending to proof of stake blockchains, because with a proof of stake blockchain, any node can produce blocks. It's not like proof of work. Any node can produce blocks. It just has to be configured with a validator key and some stake. And inevitably, all these nodes end up running in the cloud because it's so convenient. So, you know, in a sense, these layer one blockchains are sort of layer two applications of, you know, big corporate cloud services, and that's not a good situation. That they could even switch off whole blockchains. So we're seeing the problems already. I mean, Uniswap had to delist half of its tokens, and this despite the fact that the underlying contracts are upgraded via governance tokens. The reason for that, of course, is that the Uniswap team ran the Uniswap portal, and there's a Amazon Web Services account or something similar with their name on it. So what happens is that they gained transitive liability for the smart contract functionality, and so they self-censored and removed all these tokens. So that kind of problem's going to get much worse. Oh, by the way, of course, don't forget the Ethereum's MetaMask wallet is a Chrome extension that's downloaded from the Chrome Web Store, and a while back that got banned too. So all of this stuff is incredibly vulnerable to censorship. So the first thing the internet computer makes possible is the building of dApps and services that run entirely from blockchain and don't have to incorporate corporate cloud services into their architectures. The second thing they make possible, or will make possible at least in January, is the assignment of dApps and services to a kind of super advanced DAO system called a service nervous system. And essentially you can take your dApp, assign it to a new service nervous system, and thereafter it will run under the control of thousands of anonymous community members. And that service nervous system works very much in the same way as the network nervous system that currently governs and manages the internet computer network itself. And it incorporates these things called voting neurons, which are created by staking the governance token. And it's through these service nervous systems then that the smart contracts will be upgraded, which will provide the kind of censorship resistance people need to employ advanced tokenization strategies. So we very much think that total decentralization is the only way forward.
Wow. Well, here's the total decentralization, the death of Amazon Web Services, and replacement with something better. And Dominic Williams, thank you very much. That's it from us for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Adriana and Dominic, absolutely incredible. I mean, that really was a feature panel. Josh, there's so much to wrap up. I mean, we are way over time, but that really was outstanding. I do want to mention, I see there's a question that came through on the Q&A section. I'm going to ask this anyway, just for fun, Dominic. Meta's logo, remarkably similar to internet computers. Was it in any way, do you think Facebook's ad agency saw what Internet Computer had done?
No, I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure Facebook spent an awful lot of money and to get that logo. I'm a little concerned. It looks a bit like sort of reality's melting, which I suppose is the point. It looks a little bit ominous, but it's certainly true that a couple of years ago now, we did have some contact with somebody from DM, the Facecoin thing, and after that contact, they added a subfolder with all this BLS stuff, presumably trying to, experimenting with, I think they call it next gen crypto or something, experimenting with some of the approaches we were taking. But so they have actually, tried to copy us, at least, with respect to, crypto techniques in the past. But I'm sure the logo is just thought up by some, branding agency.
Very interesting. Well, Dominic Williams of Internet Computer and Adriana Hamacher, who is the founder of Hipgeeks as well. Adriana is a leading editor in this industry, in the tech industry, an editor and writer. And so it's been a real privilege to have you both with us. This has been great. And we look forward to hopefully having you again on an African panel in the near future. Thank you.
Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
it. Thanks.